Now, we still will never be able to get that down. You might have to just practice that off camera. I mean, that might be the only way we get to it. Anyways, welcome back, everybody. We're here for another episode. The NBA playoffs are still playing right now, so you'll see our recap of the NBA finals next week, when most likely it will probably be over. Who knows? Maybe it'll go on for another week, but if it were to end at some point next week, we'll go over it then, and whatever else we'll need to go over. Maybe some coaching changes, but other than that, nothing to do there. Also, MLB Home Run Derby is playing right now, and maybe we'll go over it at the end. Anyways, today we are here for an NFL episode. We did in our last NFL episode the NFC and AFC North divisions for trades and free agent moves. Today, however, we are going to be doing the South division, so NFC, AFC South. We're starting with the AFC South and with the Houston Texans. Now, we already did the Houston Texans, me and Serbenski, in a video a while back. If you remember that video, there are a ton of acquisitions for the Houston Texans in free agency. There's not a whole lot of trades, but there are a ton of free agents that they signed. So they have a lot of stuff to do. And there's a lot I'm going to have to edit in later. I don't know how I'll fit it, but hopefully I will. Anyways, for Houston, obviously their entire team is a mess. Deshaun Watson is the biggest problem of this team. Until his all of his off-field issues get fixed, I don't see any future for Houston. And honestly, if they don't have Deshaun Watson come back, they might end up with the number one pick. This team is really among one of the worst in my opinion. But they have signed a ton of running backs, in which I look at the people they've signed. They obviously signed both Jeff Driscoll and Tyrod Taylor. You gotta have somebody at quarterback who isn't named Deshaun Watson, since Watson is probably not going to play another snap this year. uh, so outside of those quarterbacks, we have the running backs that they signed, which is Rex Burkhead, Mark Ingram, and Philip Lindsay. I don't get any of these signings whatsoever. You traded for David Johnson. You gave away DeAndre Hopkins for him. And now you sign another 3 starting caliber running backs to the position. What is the what do you I don't know what they're thinking. Unless they have an idea of where they're going to trade David Johnson or just going to give him away, these signings make no sense whatsoever. But outside of that, you got Chris Conley, Andre Roberts, Dante Moncrief. I'm not going to read all these names. I'll have it on the screen for you to read. I'm not seeing all of these. This will take way too long. But they have a bunch of people that they signed, long story short. Uh, this team is a mess. They're going to be garbage. That's all I got to say about them. All you, Sam. If you, there you go.
Yeah, I did have to mute for a little bit there just to keep it quiet so that we could hear Mitchell when he was speaking, so that we respect the people's space. Anyway, the Houston Texans are a mess. Case in point, all about the Deshaun Watson case. How the charges may or may not be guilty. Looking like it's going to be guilty. And then you'll see how the NFL deals with him, how the Texans deal with him. Pretty much he's dead weight that is on the Texans right now. I think one of the reasons they have all these acquisitions is because they had 5 draft picks, which were Davis Mills, another quarterback, Stanford, for the 3rd round. Nico Collins, if you remember him, wide receiver from Michigan. Brevin Jordan, tight end from Miami. Garrett Wallow, linebacker from TCU, and Roy Lopez, defensive tackle from Arizona. Nico, do you remember him on Michigan? That he is said to have lost 15 pounds since he did not participate in the 2020 season because of COVID or whatever. But he was at the Senior Bowl, and he pierced. Still struggles at separating at that catch point, so see if the Texans want to develop him. But the Texans in general are pretty much a disaster. They signed 28 to 30 players on their team. They're all in 1 to 2 year deals, too. If they're going to be sitting around for a long time. I like Dante Moncrief. I remember he's a good player on the Colts, coming from the Colts, and he's on the Texans, going from rival team to rival team, and just a lot of pickups. Derek Rivers, good defensive end out of I believe he was on Denver, and then pretty much we're looking at a lot of players, a lot of jumbled up, a lot of mixed emotions on the Texans, so they don't know what exactly to do. So first thing they do is go out and get a bunch of players.
Yeah, I did forget to mention their draft class. I mean, they did have a whole 5 picks, like you said, so it was pretty much that forgetful. But they did get Nico Collins, so that's about the only good thing about it. I mean, Davis Mills isn't horrible, but outside of those two, who cares about the rest? So that's the Houston Texans. They're a joke, obviously. So we're going to move on from the joke squad onto the next one on here, which is the Indianapolis Colts. And I like the future for this team a lot. So I'm going to go over who they gotten. Well, the first one on here is actually via trade, which is Carson Wentz. Obviously, the Colts have had big problems with their quarterback situation for a few years. I mean, they've tried doing Jacoby Brissett, and last year they had Phillip Rivers before he ended up retiring, and they've tried to waffle between pretty much anyone and everyone they can find. I think Carson Wentz might be able to fix it. Obviously, Carson Wentz had his own issues in Philadelphia. Of course, before he got a 30 billion injuries and sacked 50 times, he had played very well. So honestly, I think this is a high risk, high reward kind of move for the Colts. If it works out, then they got themselves a fantastic quarterback of the future. But if it doesn't, well, I mean, they'll be sad. But I mean, that's what trades are all about. But I love this trade for the Colts. They give the Eagles a 2021 third rounder. Obviously, the Eagles already used that. And they also give him a conditional 2022 second rounder. Essentially, if Wentz stays healthy and plays the whole year, then it'll become a first. If not, it's a second. That's how that would work. But outside of that, they've also signed Marlon Mack, who I don't know how much he will play, but they have him anyways. T.Y. Hilton they have re-signed. Decent wide receiver. He's getting a little older and hasn't really done much. Haven't had much of an impact on the Colts as of lately. Eric Fisher signed with the Colts. That was a big addition for him on the offensive line. Antoine Woods isn't too bad, and Xavier Rhodes is a solid addition in free agency. As for the Colts draft class, I know their first round pick was actually another guy from Michigan. We just talked about Nico Collins. They got God, where's the Colts draft class on here? But they got the defensive end from the Wolverines, whose name for some reason escapes me right now. But I really like him. He's a good player. Quiddy Pay. Yeah, there you go. That's the name I was looking for. But Quiddy Pay was really good with the Wolverines. He was expected to be a higher first round pick. They're not Eagles. Colts got him at 21. So I like that pick for the Colts, and I still cannot find their draft class. But Indy is definitely a playoff team in my opinion. They got the talent for it. They got the players for it. And the only issue for the Colts for the entire time has really been the offense, and there's their draft class. But Their issue has always been the quarterback position, finding stability there. They also ended up drafting later Sam Etlinger. I loved him in Texas as a great late pick, someone who can learn under maybe someone like Carson Wentz for a couple years and see how it maybe turns out. Probably not going to do a whole lot, but you never know. Sam Etlinger was really good in Texas. Maybe he ends up being good in the NFL. That's what the late picks are for. Other than that, I don't really see a whole lot else on the Colts draft class that impresses me, but I do like Kwity Paye and Sam Etlinger. I think is a great value pick for this team, considering their quarterback issues. Over to you, Sam.
Yes. Those Colts and what they've been developing over the years. You remember Andrew Luck retired, obviously. You know why he retired? Because the Colts had such an awful offensive line that they couldn't keep Andrew Luck from getting sacked. So he retired. They went to Jacoby Brissett. He was an okay quarterback, and he's still just an okay quarterback, not a great quarterback in the NFL. Almost Cam Newton now, that is, not Cam Newton that won an MVP, but Cam Newton now. And then we got, now we have a very scary offensive line. You want to talk about a scary offensive line? You got, on one side, you got Quentin Nelson. On the other side, you got Eric Fisher. Great run blocker, great pass blocker. Which one are you going to go to? You can go to either side if you want. If you're the Colts, you can go pretty much anywhere. With that running back, they have Marlon Mack, and it escapes me who
Jonathan Taylor.
Jonathan Taylor, another scary running back because he's been built up all this time with those big Wisconsin offensive linemen from the cornfields of Wisconsin.
Oh yeah,
and the cheese factories as well. But you go back to their Carson Wentz as the biggest. One of the biggest signs for the Colts. Remember, he's teaming back up with Frank Reich, former offensive coordinator at Philadelphia. So they're getting back together. They know each other. They're going to have a system for Carson Wentz because for last year, I know a lot of Colts fans, and I know they were questioning Frank Reich on all his offensive play calls, especially in the playoffs against the Bills. They just couldn't go down and score against the Bills when they had it one last time. They couldn't. I think it was fourth down that they either threw an interception or something. It's just, and the play call before that was like a run or something on 3rd and 9 or whatever. But obviously, you got to fix the play calling. But they fixed the QB situation because Philip Rivers wasn't even. He was just on his last legs pretty much because he's not a very mobile quarterback anymore. He's
39.
Exactly. So, obviously, I think this is a great offseason for the Colts. Definitely going to be competing for the number one AFC South come next winter 2021.
Very much so. I like the Colts going into the season. They should be a really good team. My family's watching the home run derby as well, so if that's what you're hearing, that's what's going on out there. But next one, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars. Obviously, the Jaguars had the number one pick this past offseason. Rip the Jet fans who so much wanted a quarterback. They got themselves one anyway. We'll go over them in the East, which I'll be doing in our next NFL video, whenever that would be. But the Jaguars obviously had the number one pick. Obviously, they took Trevor Lawrence. That'll be the quarterback of the future. They also, in the first round, took his fellow running back, Travis Etienne, which I like Travis Etienne. I just don't know how he fits in the Jaguar offense with them already having James Robinson, who took off as an undrafted free agent last year. Not to mention the fact that the Jaguars also signed Carlos Hyde. So again, you got a billion running backs. I mean, you don't have a Houston Texans situation where you have 4 guys you can go between, but still, for Jacksonville, it's like, where does Travis Etienne fit in the picture with already Carlos Hyde and James Robinson in there? I mean, obviously, I wouldn't be saying that if it was like a later draft pick. I'd be like, oh, it's for depth. But that's your first round pick. Normally, that's someone you would have who you'd want to be starting, not someone you'd want as a depth guy. Which, like I said, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense considering how good James Robinson was last year. But maybe there's something behind it. The Jaguars, of course, also signed two former Detroit Lions in Jamal Agnew and Marvin Jones. End up getting both of them. That's some big additions. Jamal Agnew, obviously, he's well known for his return skills. He doesn't really do a whole lot else, but he was really good for the Lions returning the football. Marvin Jones was just a really good wide receiver in general. Philip Dorsett is pretty good. What is going on out there? And Pharaoh Cooper, they also signed. No idea who that is. Of course, the big talk has been around the Jaguars citing Tim Tebow as a tight end. I don't know how I feel about this. Because if you guys remember when Tim Tebow ended up pretty much fizzling out in the NFL, he was given a chance at tight end, actually by the Patriots. The Patriots wanted to sign him as a tight end, and he declined it. And so no one else wanted to sign him as a quarterback, and then he just left. And now he's signed as a tight end at like 32 years old. He's been out of football for I don't know how many years it is now. So it's definitely an interesting move, I would say. But I mean, I guess we'll see what exactly happens here. We also got Cam Robinson, who they franchise tagged. They got a decent amount of moves on here as well. They got Shaquille Griffin in a deal, cornerback,
Can I
really
interrupt you
good.
for 1 second?
Go ahead.
I was just notified that Trevor Story hit a 518-foot home run, and that is the longest ever in the home run derby.
Yeah, well, I mean, it is Coors Field, so it doesn't. I don't doubt it. I know the longest at Coors Field was 504 feet by Giancarlo Stanton. Side note about Coors Field: if you guys don't know why everyone's so big on Coors Field and home runs, it's because the air is very thin, and because like it's high altitude in Denver. So since at the high altitude, the air is much thinner, which allows the ball to carry much farther, making home runs a whole lot easier to hit. Which is why we currently have 35 being hit by Pete Alonso right now. This will probably. I don't doubt there will be a record for total home runs in the home run derby this year. It might beat the last one, which they had like Guerrero and Peterson combined for like 100 by themselves. Um, but anyways, back to the Jaguars here. They got Dewan Smoot, a lot of other people, so they got a good amount in free agency. The Jaguars, of course, they got a lot in the draft, so they big time improved, but they're still not going to be anywhere they want to be. But Jaguars are going to significantly improve. I don't think there'll be a playoff team. I don't think they'll get there, not even close. But they'll certainly be something like a 6-10, 5-11, I'd say, maybe even 7-9. I think that'd be a fair assumption for the Jaguars. Over to you.
Here's what I don't think. I don't think it will be they win the first game and then they lose the next 15, just like this last year. Definitely
Safe
won't be
to
like
say.
that. Yeah. Let's see.
Yes, there he will.
Weapons. Yeah. They signed 4 receivers. They signed high. They got a couple running backs already. And they got ETN and you say Robinson drafted free agent. James Robertson, a breakout year last year. Yeah, breakout year in a 1-15 season. It might be something to watch. And they did a lot in the offseason. They had a lot to work with. They have, I believe their general manager is Tom.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, so, he's won a couple Super Bowls at New York, so he knows what he's doing. So the Jaguars will improve this year. You look at some of the other. And I love the Griffin brothers, their story. Um, I think Shaquem is the one that has one arm, one hand, right?
Yeah, the Seattle Seahawk linebacker, that the
Yeah,
brother from Seattle, the Seattle
yeah,
brother is the one. Yeah,
yeah. Because they were both on UCF, University of Central Florida. That's where they came from.
they actually
It's,
were both Seahawks for a while, but the one with both arms actually signed with the Jaguars. I believe the other one's still in Seattle.
both really good players from
They are.
another good pickup for the Jaguars. Jaguars are known for defense. They did pick up a lot on the defensive side. They got Malcolm Brown from the New Orleans Saints.
Via trade.
Via trade, yeah, via trade. Who else? Tim Tebow is obviously the fun one to talk about. Former quarterback, tried then tried baseball,
Baseball.
then back to the NFL. We go for a second round drop. I mean, not even $1 million contract, so really Jaguars aren't putting that much into him. I don't think they would need to put that much into him anyway. He's probably got enough money as it is. I would imagine he's been on so many shows, so many advertisements, everything like that. He's probably not even in it for the money, really. He's probably just in it to get back active, get back into football shape. Just want to get one more round, one more go at it. Because you said he's what, 32?
He's 32 or 33, somewhere around
32
there.
or 33. So he's still at the age where he can play a couple more years. If he's any good, like, if anything, he's definitely a distraction. Teams will look at him and see him there. But I don't know if he'll do much. I hope he does something because I know he's a good guy. He professes his faith. He stands on his faith and his belief in God, his belief in Jesus a lot. So I definitely wish him the best on the Jaguars. That's for sure.
Yeah, he's actually he's 33 years old. I just took a look at it. So on to the next team, which is the last team in the AFC South, and that is the Tennessee Titans. Now, of course, the big topic in the South divisions actually will be covering over the Julio Jones deal. Because actually, guess where the Titans got him from? The Atlanta Falcons. Who are we actually are covering next? So we'll cover both aspects of the Julio Jones deal, how it works out for the Titans, how it works out for the Falcons. But for the Titans, the Julio Jones deal makes a crap ton of difference. They didn't have to give up a whole lot to give him. We're going to talk about that for the Falcons because they gave him up basically for nothing. But Julio Jones is an outstanding receiver. I believe he's about 31 or 32 at this time. But Julio Jones, unbelievable wide receiver. This gives the Titans a devastating 1-2 punch of A.J. Brown and Julio Jones. I'm sorry, but that is terrifying with Ryan Tannehill, who's been pretty good for the Titans at the QB spot. They also have Anthony Firkser. Of course, they did lose Jonnu Smith as their tight end, so now Anthony Firkser will be taking over the tight end spot. Jonnu Smith ended up moving to the Patriots, who we cover in our next East episode. They spent a ton of money in free agency. Their free agency is loaded. But anyways, outside of Julio Jones and Firkser, there's not really a whole lot else out here. I do see Jayon Brown though. I believe that's the former Dallas Cowboy linebacker. I do like him a lot. That's a nice addition on the defensive end. Bud Dupree, they spent a ton of money obviously to get. I think that's a big addition for the Titans. And then they also got Janoris Jenkins, nice corner. So they definitely needed work on the defensive end. They definitely seemed to try and address that in free agency. They also got Caleb Farley in the NFL draft, corner from Virginia Tech. Has a bit of an injury history, but when he plays, he has been very good. So I do like that pick for them. Other than that, they didn't really take a whole lot else. They got themselves a lineman out of North Dakota State. He was apparently the guy that literally basically saved Trey Lance's life all the time. So I mean that's nice to have. Basically the top protector for Trey Lance. So not bad there. Other than that, I don't really see a whole lot else in free agency. I'll hand it over to Sam for his opinions.
Yeah, Jones trade was huge because you recall the Titans just lost Corey Brown to the Buffalo Bills. So that was one of their top
Corey
receivers.
Davis, yeah.
Yeah. What did I say?
You said Corey Brown, it's Corey Davis.
Corey Davis. That's why I didn't say his name. Corey Davis, not Corey Brown. Where did I get Corey Brown from? Anyway, Corey Davis. I know that was one of their top receivers. Also out of Western Michigan. Go Broncos. Yeah, the Julio Jones trade was huge for the Titans. Now they have a go-to target. I don't think the Falcons use them to the best of their ability. I don't think, and it just after that one choke job by the Falcons back in 2016, they couldn't get back on the road to the Super Bowl again. They kind of just fell apart on offense, and Matt Ryan couldn't find Julio Jones. Even though Julio Jones can literally be double and triple coverage and still catch the ball, and he even plays defense too. I brings me back to that one play when Falcons are playing the Panthers in Atlanta. Jones had to play defense. The ball was literally in Christian McCaffrey's hands, and Jones punched it out as he was making the catch. So Jones is a heck of a player all around. So that's a big pickup for the Titans. And then Bud Dupree as well, Janoris Jenkins. Bud Dupree is an excellent pickup. Obviously, they had to spend a lot of money, $85 million with $35 million guaranteed. But he's a great player on the Steelers. There's a lot of key defensive stops for them. So the Titans, it's going to come down to the Titans and the Colts for sure in the AFC South. And really, it'll come down to, both of them have good offensive firepower, and the Colts, are really good at defense. The question is, did the Titans make enough adjustments on defense to match the Colts defense, pretty much? That's the only question that we have going into the season.
Yeah, obviously the AFC South is a two-way race between the Colts and the Titans, as pretty much the rest of that division has no shot at winning it. I mean, the Jaguars obviously will be better, but, there's not really a whole lot else to say for them. So we go to the NFC South. No, we're going to do the AFC all over again. But no, we'll go to the NFC South. Obviously, I told you the first team would be the Atlanta Falcons, so here come the Atlanta Falcons. They obviously, as I said, we would cover the Falcons' perspective of the Julio Jones trade. Terrible. That was a horrible deal. You got nothing pretty much in return, and you gave away a perennial All Pro. I don't get that. Obviously, Julio Jones asked to be traded, so you had to trade him away. But giving away Julio Jones and a 6th round pick for a second and a 4th is just absolutely nothing, which was very shocking to me. Outside of that, the Atlanta Falcons got in free agency A.J. McCarron, who really cares. Mike Davis, they actually signed in free agency. That was a big move for Atlanta. I'm guessing this will probably be the starting running back for the Atlanta Falcons because they did not re-sign Todd Gurley. So I'm guessing Todd Gurley is going to be going elsewhere. Mike Davis will step in for the Falcons. He took over for Christian McCaffrey when he got hurt for the Panthers pretty much the entire year. That really was great for me in fantasy. But he was hurt for the Panthers pretty much the entire year, and Davis stepped in, was incredible. So I think that's what the Falcons are looking at there. Outside of that, they got a couple other guys. The problem for the Falcons is their defense. Their defense is absolutely terrible. Of course, with the fourth pick, though, they did not take a defensive player because they ended up taking Kyle Pitts. However, I can't really fault them for that because it's Kyle Pitts, once in a lifetime tight end prospect. Kind of hard to pass up on it. But they also got themselves Jalen Mayfield, another Michigan man, offensive tackle. I really do like him. That's a nice pick from him in the third round. Before that, they got a safety, UCF, UFC. I almost said UFC. Yeah, I'm thinking about the Conor McGregor fight. We had a lot. Me and Sam had a lot of fun watching that, but outside of, huh?
Almost too much fun.
Yeah, almost too much fun for sure. But outside of that, for the Falcons, I don't see a whole lot else. So I'm going to hand it over to Sam for his opinions on the Atlanta Falcons. And fortunately enough for them, it is not March 28th.
Yes. Cordell Patterson, obviously replace Julio Jones for wide receivers they picked up. But it's always nice to have on your team if you ever need a kick returner. That's for sure.
Or running back.
Or running back even. If you just need a spark play, really. All you need is a spark play. All you need is insert Cordell Patterson and insert spark play here. Set off your team. Could be a game changer. Yeah. Just 2 picks for Julio Jones? What do you think there's another Julio Jones out there anytime soon? Is that what they're thinking? I'm not really sure. This guy is a once-in-a-lifetime monster-type player that I was describing to you earlier about offense and even defense sometimes, defensive plays. But really don't know what they're thinking unless they're just trying to do a rebuild. But in that case, they'd have to get rid of Matt Ryan, too. They're not getting rid of Matt Ryan as far as I've seen. But I think pretty much the Falcons just need a massive rebuild. They need to blow it up because the past several seasons they've been losing records ever since the Super Bowl. I think they've just had losing records: 7-9, 4-12, 5-11. The scheme is not working, and they fired Dan Quinn last year or 2 years ago, right?
This year.
This year?
Midway through the year, they fired him.
Yeah, so that was a good start. They needed to rebuild. They need to rebuild all the way from the top bottom. They need to do basically what Detroit did, I think. Because Atlanta and Detroit, they're very similar teams. They had great quarterbacks and then pretty average wide receiving cores with a 1-star receiver, Kenny Galladay and Julio Jones. So maybe they were trying to mimic Detroit, but they didn't really have the amount of cap space, which pretty much, I guess Julio Jones does free up cap space too, if you think about it. But not a lot of notable players. Falcons probably not going to have a good year. I did notice they got that one, Kyle Pitts, really good tight end from Florida, obviously. They need a tight end because, tight ends are just in high demand in general in the NFL. Really, when you're doing fantasy, which I see you've mentioned, finally mentioned your fantasy for the first time in the podcast, so I knew it was coming at one point in this podcast. Your fantasy team in some way, shape, or form would be mentioned, or a player or whatever. It happens. I know. But only 5 or 6 good, really good tight ends, really notable tight ends in the NFL that are usable. Travis Kelce, George Kittle, Rob Gronkowski, obviously. But Kyle Pitts shows up and turns out to be like one of them. It's looking pretty good for Atlanta's future, at least at tight end. Very least at tight end.
Yeah, I don't know about the Falcons unless they can ever get like a sustainable defense, because their offense will probably be really good once again. Their offense has been fine for years, but unless they can get a defense to back up that offense, they are never going to have a winning season. But outside of that, next we go to the Carolina Panthers, which the first thing we will probably talk about is the Sam Darnold trade that they made. Fun fact about the Sam Darnold trade: it took the exact same. The Sam Darnold deal was the exact same thing, pretty much, as the Julio Jones trade. So just to say how bad the Falcons trade was, it literally took all the Titans had to give up just as much as the Panthers had to give up for Sam Darnold. Compare Julio Jones to Sam Darnold. There's a massive difference there. The Falcons got the Titans got big time steal, and the Falcons got big time fleeced. But you go to the Panthers. They traded for Sam Darnold, giving up a second and a fourth for a sixth and Sam Darnold. Um, Sam Darnold is a young quarterback. He has not obviously had the best start with the Jets. The Jets
Except for
made
against the Lions.
yeah, but Sam Darnold, he hadn't had the greatest start with the Jets. The Jets did pretty much the same thing that the Cardinals did. The Cardinals just decided to screw Josh Rosen. They traded him away, got a second round pick, and then got the number one pick and took Kyler Murray. The Jets ended up getting rid of Sam Darnold, and they got themselves Zach Wilson for their next quarterback, but we'll talk about that when we actually talk about the Jets. For the Panthers, though, they got themselves Sam Darnold to be their new quarterback. If Darnold ends up getting a lot better, maybe he'll be something. But Panthers now have Sam Darnold for a quarterback. David Moore also signed with the team. Denzel Perryman, Hassan Reddick, AJ Boye. Um, so they got some different players on in free agency. So I think the Panthers should be a decent team. I don't know if they'll make the playoffs, but they maybe have a chance. I do like the Panthers team though. They got a lot of decent players. They end up taking J.C. Horn at number 8. They need defense, just like the Falcons. To me, the Panthers are literally just like their defense is their defense is way less bad than the Falcons, but their offense is not as good as the Falcons. They're basically just a minor version of the Falcons, just a little less bad in one area, a little not as good in the other. So
which is why those games are so good between those two.
Exactly.
They're so evenly matched.
It is so true. And I think Carolina should have a decent year. I loved this pick. I don't know if he'll ever have a future now because he has Christian McCaffrey in front of him. But they also took Chuba Hubbard. I love him. He's an Oklahoma State running back. He was unbelievable for the Cowboys. As I said, I don't think he'll have a future with the Panthers because he'll be stuck behind Christian McCaffrey unless they get rid of him. But Chuba Hubbard is unbelievable. I'd love to see him have a great future in the NFL. That is all for me. I take it over to Sam.
Yes. How about Hubbard? I always love saying his name. It's just such a fun name to say.
I always just say Chuba Hubba, but Chuba Hubba.
Great running backs with the Oklahoma State Sooners. Or no, I'm sorry, the Cowboys. The Oklahoma State Cowboys.
Oklahoma State Sooners. What?
That's the two mixed up.
Alrighty, well.
Sorry to you. It's almost the same thing because you're red and orange. But here in Michigan, we have Michigan State, yellow and green. Like bright yellow and dark green, not like a dark red orange, a dark red, and then like a darkish orange too. Anyway, that's besides the point. We're talking about the Panthers, right? Donald trade, but then the Dan Arnold acquisition for the Panthers at tight end. Dan Arnold, former tight end for the Arizona Cardinals, I believe Serbinsky would know. That's for sure.
I believe he is, yeah.
I did like Dan Arnold when he was on the Cardinals. He's a solid tight end, somebody Murray could get to quickly as a last resort. and he would pick up the necessary yardage that is needed on the play. So it's good running, good tight end. Sorry, not running back. Good tight end for the Panthers, and then really, I think it all depends on how good of a season the Panthers are going to have is how healthy Christian McCaffrey stay. Is he going to be an injury-prone running back like we've seen in the past with people like, Kerryon Johnson? Or just step out of this injury stronger than he came in? Really all depends on Panthers. Panthers are a relatively boring team, if I was honest. They don't have a lot of offensive firepower except for Christian McCaffrey. But you look at when they played the Lions, that was an atrocious game. The Lions lost. That game was like 15-10 or something. The Lions really deserved to lose to the Panthers. And they had Teddy Bridgewater as quarterback last year. Teddy Bridgewater, so definitely an improvement there. Even though Teddy Bridgewater.
Bridgewater got traded to the Broncos.
Right. So they don't have Teddy Bridgewater anymore. But wasn't he on the Saints too?
He was, and he signed with the Panthers this past year.
So who? Side note. Who torched the? Oh, it was Jameis Winston that was on the Saints that torched the Bucs that one play in the playoffs.
I don't know what play you're referring to, but
in the playoffs, the 75-yard touchdown pass for Jameis Winston.
Oh yeah, I think that was Winston.
Yeah, because I remember he torched the Bucs. Sorry, I get Jameis Winston and Teddy Bridgewater, all those players confused because they all were switching on the same teams. They were on the Saints and Bucs and Panthers, all in the same division too. So that's what we got to do.
Well, I mean, speaking of the New Orleans Saints and Jameis Winston, since you've already been talking about them, we'll just head right there.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, so New Orleans Saints, obviously the big news for New Orleans is that Drew Brees has officially retired from the NFL. Honestly, Drew Brees is one of my favorite players. I love Drew Brees. Great NFL quarterback, has a lot of records, great career, unbelievable player. Wish the best for him in his retirement. But that leaves New Orleans in a little bit of a QB bind now. Obviously, they do have Taysom Hill, their little gadget player. But many people expect the Saints starting quarterback, I do too, to be Jameis Winston, who actually re-signed with the Saints on a one-year deal for $5.5 million. Now, Jameis Winston, of course, he was also the first player to ever throw 30 touchdowns and 30 picks in the exact same year. So, here's what I have for Jameis Winston. If he can cut down on those, if you can keep throwing your 30 touchdowns and then throw me like 15 picks instead of 30 picks, you'll be an all-star. you'll be a Pro Bowler pretty much like every year. But he has to cut down on the picks to be able to do that. Still, though, I like Jameis Winston. He's a good quarterback. I mean, obviously, you're doing something right if you're throwing 30 touchdowns a game. You're also doing something wrong. You're throwing 30 picks, or not 30 touchdowns a game, 30 touchdowns a season. But, 30 touchdowns a game. Yeah, there you go. He's scoring 210 points a game. But, no, Winston, if he can, you're doing something right if you're throwing 30 touchdowns a season. You're obviously doing something wrong if you're throwing 30 picks a season. But, obviously, Winston, he's a good quarterback. I think he'll be a nice starting QB for the New Orleans Saints. But the Saints, they also got, of course, depth at the quarterback position in the NFL draft with Ian Book in the 4th round. Ian Book, quarterback at Notre Dame, he's made some nice plays. He's a decent QB. It's a nice pick for them. And the rest of their picks suck. The rest of their picks I do not like at all. Peyton Turner, he was supposed to be Uh, as far as I know, I don't even think he was supposed to be a first rounder. Pete Werner was not even supposed to be it was supposed to be like a fourth rounder. So it seems like the Saints like reached for everybody, and they only had 6 picks. So I'm not a whole lot. I'm not overly excited with their NFL draft, but I mean, their team already as good as it is, so as long as they can keep the quarterback situation going and they have somebody who can throw to their team and their players, I think the Saints should be a borderline playoff team. I think they would be able to sneak in. But over to you.
Yeah. Brady versus Breeze to Brady versus Winston. Like, oh, that was never a classic matchup. Yes. Winston, listen here, please. Listen. We're just asking you to cut it in half. We're not asking you to go from 36 to 0. We're just asking you to go to 15. That's only one a game, which means that you have to improve as a player, clearly, because you have to study the defenses. You have to read the plays, call audibles when you need to. You have to become the team leader now that Drew Brees is gone, because Drew Brees was a huge leader. That's going to be a huge hole to fill for the Saints. They still have Sean Payton, great coach. They still have Alvin Kamara, great running back. Great 1-2 punch with Alvin Kamara, and Ty Montgomery re-signed as well. They are, Ian Book. They got a quarterback for depth. It's just for depth, because I don't think Ian Book is that good of a quarterback. I mean, he had that one good game against Michigan, and then they had him benched pretty much after that. For you know who they have him benched for? Ian Book.
Sorry. What were you saying? I'm paying attention to what in the world my family is doing in the living room right now. But what are you? What did you say?
Ian Book, he had that one good game against Michigan up in, I believe that was 2018 or 2019, and then he got benched by. Who did he get benched by the rest of the year?
Benched by? I don't remember Buck getting benched by anyone.
I remember he started.
Yeah, I think he got hurt for a game.
Was that what it was?
I thought he got hurt and then came back. Maybe he got benched. I don't know. But all I know is one year the Wolverines just demolished the Fighting Irish 45-14. That was a great day to be watching Michigan football.
That was 2019. I remember that. That was a great day to be a Wolverine.
They're very few and they're very far and few. So there's some days that we love to be Wolverines. Some days, well, most days, especially for football fans, that we just hate ourselves. Anyways, we go to the defending NFL Super Bowl champions, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which their team is really easy to cover. This will take like maybe 3 minutes because they literally have the exact same team as last year. They re-signed all of their free agents, and then that was it. The only new person they have on their team is Giovanni Bernard, who they signed to a 1-year deal. Other than that, and they're obviously their draft class, other than that, they don't have anybody else who is new. And the Tampa Bay draft class, they drafted a linebacker from Washington in the first round. And then they took Kyle Trask as the last pick of the second round. Obviously, probably to be Brady's replacement. I love that pick. It's a nice pick to have because, I mean, he's a good quarterback, first of all. And second of all, Tom Brady is literally the best quarterback to ever exist in the NFL. And so, I mean, he is a nice player to have as Trask. Is a nice player to have learning under someone like Tom Brady. And so that is all I got to say about the Tampa Bay Bucks. Like I said, they're a pretty quick team to cover. Over to you.
Yep, they pretty much just did a bunch of re-signing this year. A lot of re-signing. Former Lion Dominican Sue, Rob Gronkowski back in the team. They that he put the franchise tag on Chris Godwin, excellent wide receiver. He still got Mike Evans. Re-signed Antonio Brown, which I still don't really see why he need Antonio Brown, but it's a story for another day. Leonard Fournette, great running back. Giovanni Bernard will be a nice piece to add to running back to give him a nice 1-2 punch. I feel like he's been wasted at the Bengals pretty much for a long time now, so I'll be able to spread his wings, give him a good 1-2 punch there with Fournette and Bernard, and then obviously backup QBs Gabbert, Griffin, and Trask, which I don't think. I mean, the only time those guys will see the field is when the Buccaneers are blowing out a team, which I think they will solidly blow out a couple teams, at least by 30 or 40 points this year, just with the sheer amount of talent that they have on their team. And nothing really to say about their draft class. I also like Kyle Trask. I like Florida in general. Florida QBs, Tim Tebow, Kyle Trask. Or at least they were QBs at one point. But Buccaneers are set, at least until Brady's gone, and they're going to have to do a lot of developing in either Trask. Yeah, no, they're just going to have to do a lot of developing on Trask. You can't develop Gabbert or Griffin any more than they already are. So, pretty much, you're going to have definitely contending for another Super Bowl. That is for sure with this Buccaneers team.
All right.
I figured out one last thing. Ian Book actually replaced Brandon Wimbush in that 2018 season. Brandon Wimbush beat.
Oh yeah, him.
Yeah, somehow he beat Michigan, and that's when they made it to the college football playoff final. They were 12-0 that year, and then they got crushed by Clemson, 30-3.
I think where did Wimbush go after that? I think he went to UCF after that. I'm not really sure. But anyways, that is it for us for this NFL episode. We will see you next time. I do not know. Maybe at some point we might be doing an NCAA episode over the Big Ten. I don't know when we'll be doing it, and even if we'll be doing it. Now, obviously, the football season for both the NCAA and the NFL is coming up very soon. Now, before when the first week starts for each one, I have like a little system planned for each one because me and Sam will obviously be doing predictions for all the games and who we think will win. And last year, me and Stravinsky, we wanted to keep track of who got the games right, but we never did. So I have a system this year. I have a way where I'll keep I'll keep track of who actually gets the games right, and I'll keep track of it throughout the entire season. Just a little added fun for me and Sam and even Stravinsky, as he will be returning to the podcast sooner rather than later. Later date to be determined, probably at some point in the nearby future. But that is it for us. We'll see you next time for NCAA episode or MLB. We'll probably, I don't know. We'll see you next time, though, for whatever episode it is. Adios, everybody.